Hi everyone, today we're going to read a story called Where the Wild Things Are, and the author's name is Maurice Sendak, and Maurice Sendak is also the illustrator of this book. And as we read today, we're going to focus on the characters, setting, and major events in the story. So this book has a lot of really detailed illustrations, and on some pages there are only illustrations and no words. So we're going to use those illustrations to help us to understand those characters, settings, and major events in the story. So this is important because looking at those story elements will help us to take a closer look at the story and understand it just a little bit better. So before we start, there are a few words that I want to go over with you. The first word is mischief, and mischief just means to get into trouble. The next word is private, and something that's private means it belongs only to you. The next word is gnashed. Now the wild things are monsters, so in the story we're going to hear that they gnashed their teeth together. And gnashed means to grind, and usually out of anger. That's when you would gnash. And the last word is tamed, and tamed means to be taught to behave or to follow the rules. So we're going to read Where the Wild Things Are. Pay close attention to those illustrations because they're going to help to describe the characters, setting, and major events in the story. Where the Wild Things Are. The night Max wore his wolf suit and made mischief of one kind and another. So now I'm looking at this illustration and I'm thinking, how is Max causing the mischief? And I notice from this illustration that he's jumping up and down. He has a fork in his hand, and he looks like he's chasing his dog. His dog is running away from him. So that's how he's causing the mischief. His mother called him Wild Thing, and Max said, "I'll eat you up." So he was sent to bed without eating anything. That very night, in Max's room, a forest grew. And grew. And grew until his ceiling hung with vines and the walls became the world around him. So now in each of the last few pictures, Max's room seems to be disappearing, and we're starting to see less and less of his room and more of the forest. So where is Max now? And how does the illustration help you to understand the setting? And an ocean tumbled by with a private boat for Max, and he sailed off through night and day. And in and out of weeks, and almost over a year, to where the wild things are. And when he came to the place where the wild things are, they roared their terrible roars, and gnashed their terrible teeth, and rolled their terrible eyes, and showed their terrible claws. Till Max said, "Be still," and tamed them with a magic trick of staring into their yellow eyes without blinking once, and they were frightened and called him the most wild thing of all. So now I noticed that the wild things were trying to scare Max. So what I want to know now is, what are the wild things doing in this illustration that shows you that the wild things aren't trying to scare Max anymore? So it almost looks like they're afraid of him. What are they doing? And made him king of all the wild things. "And now," cried Max, "let the wild rumpus start." So wild rumpus is just like a loud party where there might be singing and dancing, lots of noise. Now this is one of those pages that just has the illustration and no words. So this illustration shows that the wild rumpus they are causing, and they're howling at the moon, and they're roaring, marching, and screaming. So now I want to know, looking at this illustration, what kinds of wild rumpus are they causing in this picture? And now as we look at this picture, how does this illustration show you that Max and the wild things are having fun together? What types of things do you see that let you know that they're having fun? "Now stop," Max said, and sent the wild things off to bed without their supper. And Max, the king of all wild things, was lonely and wanted to be where someone loved him best of all. Then all around, from far away across the world, he smelled good things to eat. So he gave up being king of where the wild things are. But the wild things cried, "Oh, please don't go. We'll eat you up. We love you so." And Max said no. The wild things roared their terrible roars and gnashed their terrible teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws. But Max stepped into his private boat and waved goodbye. There he is waving. And sailed back over a year and in and out of weeks and through a day. And into the night of his very own room, where he found his supper waiting for him. So now take a look at this illustration. How does this illustration show how the setting of the story has changed again? And it was still hot. So that was Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. And today we paid close attention to the illustrations to help us really understand the characters, the setting, and the major events in the story. And this was a really good book for that because the illustrations were so detailed and there were so many pages that didn't have words. They just had illustrations. So I hope you had fun listening to that story.